there. This is a short version of my Arbour bench build, garden bench build. I did a kind of a more detailed series of videos on it, and it turned out to be a 4-part series, which seems a little excessive for a bench build, but there it is. So if you want to see the extended version, please check them out. There's a lot more detail on how and why I'm doing things. There's you can see some of the mistakes I made. I explain how I made them and how I fixed them. Yeah, so you might find that interesting as well. So during this build, peeling and sanding takes up a lot of time. So I just showed you peeling and sanding one log, and that's really all I'm going to put in here for that kind of stuff. If you want to see more of that, go see the other videos. The same thing with the tenants. You're going to see lots of logs with tenons and mortises here. I just showed you me cutting these logs for the cross pieces of this Arbour side. I don't think I show much more tenon cuts, but they're all done, basically the same way. Again, lots of detail in the other videos. So this is one of the sides of the Arbour bench, and I'm doing a final glue up on this one. So it's been previous to this, I made sure it all fit together, and now I'm gluing it all up. I use a glue called Type Bond 3 here, and it's a nice waterproof glue. I've had good luck with it. It seems to be the highest rating for waterproof for an outdoor glue. That's why I picked it. Hard to find around Halifax, but yeah, I've been trying to look for the bigger sizes to save some money, but they're impossible to find. So I know Busy Bee Tools here in the local metro area, that's Halifax, Nova Scotia area, has the gallon sizes, but they haven't had it in stock since last summer. And I don't think anyone else carries it. So if you know of anybody, please let me know. Anyway, putting the pieces together, I usually end up using these ratchet straps, and when it won't just knock together gently. If I pound too hard on the logs, it ends up leaving a lot of marks that I have to sand out later, which I don't want to be doing. So ratchet straps don't do that. So just putting a little bit of tension on them with the ratchet straps pulls it all together really easily and quickly, as you can see. And that one's done, and there's the other one, which I'd done previously. This bench came about just from Google searches. I was looking for ideas for another project, and I kind of wanted to do a bench style one for around the fire at the camp, is what I was originally thinking. And when I started doing some image searches, I came across 2 benches that I really liked the idea of, and I combined some elements from both of them into this build, which means that this build is just it comes from a picture in my head, basically. I don't have any plans to work from. I didn't even really sketch it out. Well, not really. I didn't sketch it out at all before I started, just straight out of my head. So there was a bit of kind of doing it and redoing it and changing dimensions and whatnot, which you'll see in the other videos if you go and look at them. This back piece took the most amount of time to kind of get looking right. The gaps versus the log sizes, etc., to make it look like it kind of fit together well. Both of the benches I found pictures of were Arbour benches. That's what I was looking for. These backs were from one of the pictures, and I really like the look of them. I don't yet know how comfortable they're going to be because it's been raining pretty much straight through since I finished this build. I haven't really had a chance to sit on it in an amount of time, so I'm not sure if these are going to be comfortable or not. I wouldn't be surprised either way, to be honest with you, but I think they really look sharp. And they were great practice. I'm, as you can see from my YouTube channel, I'm relatively new at this log building, so I'm looking for kind of projects. Every one I try to do something a little different, so I get to try different things. So this one was great practice for a few different ways. These last 2 pieces here, these are the uprights that will hold it to the rest of the bench. The bench design is basically going to be 2 seats and then separated by a shelf in between them. Got to have a place for your beverages when you're sitting around the fire, so that's why I wanted the shelf in there so you're not left holding your beverage while you're watching the fire. So you'll see that as we get through here. I I was very lucky in my vacation that I had some good weather during the period I was building this. The end of my vacation was all rain, but the beginning was pretty good. Speaking of weather, I was going to do a video this spring on my maple syrup that I make from around just in my yard here. I get I don't know, a few liters every year of maple syrup. You can see a bunch of the trees there behind me. But this year the sap unexpectedly stopped suddenly. So I got a little bit of video, but not nearly enough to put anything together, I don't think. I'll go back through it and see what's there. Maybe next year I'll be able to get that video out. So if you've seen any of my other videos, you've already met my dog Ranger. He's going to turn 5 this fall. So he's still pretty young looking. I still get asked almost, well, if I run into people who I haven't talked to before, they almost exclusively ask if he's a puppy or how old he is, and they're surprised when I tell them. He's kept that puppy look for a while, which is kind of nice. All right, so this is the final assembly. So when I was putting this together earlier, just a minute ago there, you saw me. It was just a dry fit as I was taking it apart and kind of getting the shape and fit correct. Then I took it apart, sanded all the pieces, and now I'm doing the final assembly, gluing it up. So I'm doing these for both of the back pieces. I've got when I took it apart, I marked all the pieces so I know where they go. I didn't want to be trying to figure out which side went to which side and end up having to fight with pieces that weren't fitting together right, since I went to all the work to make sure they fit together right the first time. One of the things that I'm going to try building is a wooden mallet to help knock these together. I think it might mark less. I'm not sure if that's true or not. A hardwood mallet maybe. I'm going to try it anyway. You can see I'm using a cloth here to protect it a bit, just so I knock it together. This hammer is just a dead blow mallet, which works pretty well. But if you hit too hard, it dents the wood, and of course you have to sand that out. And if you hit it without the cloth, you end up getting black marks on it from the black plastic, so you have to sand that off. So it's not ideal, but it's what I have, so that's what I use. I've also seen some people use kind of wood wrapped in old carpet, which seems to work well. I might give that a try too. I don't know, there's different options. Whatever works. So this piece is the cross member that's going to go across the front of the bench seat, hold up the seat. It has to sit up on top of the cross members of the arbor sides. So I scribed it into to those. So it'll kind of arch up over them and look good when it sits on top. So when you scribe it in, you use the log scribers to scribe it. Then you take a chisel and chisel along those lines. That way, when you cut out the wood, it doesn't blow out, take out chunks of the wood, the rest of the log. And then for some reason, I don't remember why, I decided to do this by hand, and I wanted to cut them out by hand. So I did do this first one by hand until the sanding, and you could see I was switching back and forth using any tool I could find, trying to figure out something that would work. It wasn't that easy to do by hand because this log is so small and such a sharp angle in there. And I don't know why I want to do it by hand, but you can see when I did the second one here, I did not do it by hand. Way easier and quicker to do it with the chainsaw, to do the rough material removal. I'm really looking forward to working with some larger logs to try some of these different skills that you use during log home building. This is just one example of that, so I'm looking forward to getting to those. When you're doing the chain like this and kind of taking out little bits, it's called brushing, and it's a skill that you use in log home building a lot, and it's something that I've just started doing as I got into this log building. And I'm actually really happy with my improvement in the skill level there. So I need some more practice, but I'm getting better at it every time I do it. So when I get to the point of actually building a log building, log cabin, log shed, whatever the first one's going to be, hopefully I'll be half decent at it. So now I'm just cutting up the log I've got here to get the planks for the seat. You can see here that I'm just shaping them, sanding them after I cut them, rounding off the edges so they don't dig in the back of your leg, that kind of stuff. It takes a while to do all that. The wonders of video, it took like 5 seconds. Yay! Then this piece is the top of the back of the bench. So we're just going to glue that up, and then the back of the bench is ready to finally do the bottom tenants. I had to leave those to the end because to get the right length and everything for those tenants, I had to have the back of the bench done, as you see here. I had to have the seat done because they're going to plug into the seat, and have it all together on the arbor so I could measure it and figure out where they're going to end up and need to go. That'll all make sense here in just a second as I put this together. There you go. Just a few more taps and this thing will be all together. Never to become apart again. That's my neighbor's cat, Willis. My mom has my dog Ranger for the day in this particular clip, part of the video. So, well, yeah, this video spans multiple days, as you can tell by my clothes keep changing. So the cats don't hang around much when Ranger's there. They're friendly with each other, but of course, if the cats move, the dog wants to chase them. They don't care for that much. So on a day when I don't have the dog out there, the cats hang around with me. It's nice. So you can see the arbor behind me there, and I'm cutting out the mortises where the back of the bench is going to plug in. The top of the bench goes into the logs of the arbor, but the back of the bench has to go into the seat planks themselves because it has to lean. So the only way to do that is to bring the back in a bit so the back will have a lean to it. So at this point, I'm just putting it together enough that I can mark or figure out on the arbor where to drill the holes for the back of the bench to go. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. And then I'm going to check my measurements a bunch of times because I only get one shot at drilling these holes. And it would be a pretty obvious mistake if I mess these up, but I managed to get it right. So I'll drill the holes. And then before we put it together, I'm putting a little bit of the finish on in the areas I won't be able to get to when it's together. So that's the only part I'm finishing here. So under the seats, on top of the logs, the seat parts fit on, underneath the log that was scribed, that kind of stuff. Basically anything I won't be able to get at when the final assembly is done. All right, so that's done, and now we're ready to start the final assembly. So this is exciting. This is the bench has only been together temporarily up to this point. So now we're doing the actual glue up. So here we go. You can see it goes together pretty smoothly. There's only one adjustment I'm going to have to make here in a second, which is pretty good. Again, I'm really happy with how this came together. Again, since it was just made up as I went along, I really just had a vague idea of what I was going to build. It's an adjustment I mentioned. One of the seat planks is just a little too close to the arbor. It wouldn't go in properly, so I had to put a little relief on the side of it there. And now we're going to pull it all together with the ratchet straps and a little bit of tapping with the hammer. And it goes together pretty well. You'll see it kind of warp out of shape a bit as I pull it together, but by the time I'm done and get all the top and bottom in together, it all goes back into shape okay. Of course, I measure it and check the plumb and the level and everything before I do the top. I ended up getting it all good though, so I didn't have to do any twisting of it when I put the top on. So now the seat and that and that cross member on the front will have to be screwed down. And I'm using stainless steel number 10 deck screws that I got off Amazon. Really nice hardware. It will last forever. I'm sure it'll outlast this bench. And I'm sure I could get by with less screws, especially in the seats. There's really no force on those. But I put 2 front and back on each slat, kind of for 2 reasons. One, to help keep them from warping if they warp a bit as they dry more. The log was dry when I cut it up. However, of course, it was still a round log, so there's still going to be some drying now that they're planks. So hopefully we can avoid some of that cupping that might happen otherwise. And 2, for aesthetics, I thought it looked better with 2 screws in each one as opposed to 1. I ended up putting 4 on each side of that log under the front of the seat. The reason for that was this is going to be at the camp, and it'll probably get moved around a lot. And I thought if anybody grabs it from there to lift, it'll give a little bit more strength there to have 4 on each side as opposed to just 2. Since it is a heavy Arbour bench, and I don't want all the weight just on 2 screws in the front. So that was my thinking, kind of preemptively preventing breakage, I hope. All right, so now I am putting that shelf in that I mentioned. So again, just kind of eyeballing it and figuring out where it goes. I had one of my friends sit down and see where their arm went for a comfortable place to lean on. To measure the height. I'm glad I did that because I would have ended up putting it way too high. I think I was aiming for around 14 inches high, and when we sat down and measured the actual where our arms would have been comfortable on, I think it ended up being 11 and a half inches. That's what I settled on, something like that. Anyway, so these are the 2 pieces of the that are going to hold up the shelf. And now I've got a piece of ash here that I got from my friend Matthew. He runs a sawmill. Matthew and Ronnie, actually 2 of them. And they gave me this piece of ash that was left over. They had to cut it off. It was a large log. It wouldn't fit in their sawmill, so they cut this off with a chainsaw. Anyway, so I snagged it for whatever. Didn't really have anything in particular in mind when I took it. But I've used it for a couple of shelves now. The one up on the table on my deck, and now for this. I think it looks really nice, and I'm leaving the round on the bottom. I thought it looked nice as well. Of course, this was just cut off of the chainsaw as well as the seat, so it took a lot of sanding, and then I had to put a profile on the bottom to sit flat on those logs. So I did all that with a sander, the grinder sander. It took a long time, of course, ash being a pretty dense hardwood. It took quite a bit of sanding to get it just right. And then I found out here, as I was putting it together, I had a little adjustment I needed to make. And then, of course, you have to reapply the finish. Anyway, the ash looks really nice when it's got the clear coat on it, really sharp. So that's why I like it for the shelves. So there's my little shelf in the middle. So now I'm starting the top. You can see I was starting just with raw logs again. These logs, as most of the wood I use is standing dead wood, so it's nice and dry when I get it. It's hard to find the right logs. Sometimes you'll see something and think it's good, and you cut it down, and it turns out to be rotten. But standing dead wood that is really nice wood like this, it's worth the hunt because you don't have to wait for it to dry. It's all done. The checking is kept to a minimum. You sometimes get neat patterns in them by bugs or whatever. All in all, it's really, and you're using wood that just would go to garbage otherwise if you rot in the woods. So I tend to get it from the sides of roads, new construction in subdivisions around my subdivision. People in Brookside are probably always wondering what I'm doing running around my chainsaw in the new subdivision. Probably think I'm stealing wood from construction sites. Anyway, I'm not. I'm taking old dead wood that just go to garbage. So this is the heart that I'm putting in. I ended up doing this twice. I did the here, as you can see, and it turned out because the blue mixed with the yellow of the spruce wood turned this aqua green, and I really wanted a blue heart. So here it is after I ground that green heart out and put it in blue. You can see down at the bottom there where there's a little bit of green still. That's what it looked like. That's the difference between the first and second time. And what I did is I ground out the resin after it cured, painted the bottom of the heart blue, and then re-poured it with the same color. Worked out really well. So here I am drilling the two main pieces for the top and fitting those in, and then I can measure and cut the side pieces. The cross pieces. So now I have all the cross pieces cut and measured, and now I'm drilling the mortises for those. Really, you can see me kind of back and forth, double checking before I drill every time, trying to make sure that these are plumb and in line with the with each piece, so they'll all go together. And here we are doing the final glue up. It goes together just like the Arbour sides. These are longer. I don't remember if these are longer or not. Doesn't matter. There's one or geez, how many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so there's 2 more cross pieces on the top, and that's because I have the 2 at the very ends that are out past, which of course you don't have on the side pieces. So it's probably pretty close to the same length. Right, final glue up here. Again, with the more cross pieces you have, the little trickier it is to get together sometimes, especially when you're drilling by hand, as I am, as opposed to having a nice drill press set up. There's little variations no matter how careful you are, but this went together really well. See me putting it up here. Pulled together really well with the strap, and then I left it out a bit so I could pull it together however much I needed up once I had it up there. Pulled it in and installed it, glued it all in, and here it is, the final together. It's just finish left to apply here at this point. This is what it looks like when I finished. Really happy with how this turned out. I'll do something. I'll do this. I'll do benches like this again. I'm really happy with it. If I come up with a plan, it will go much faster than it did this time, so you can cut all the pieces and then just assemble, as opposed to kind of doing it all and making it up as you go along. So now I'm applying the final finish, which is just the same clear coat I use in other videos. It's a nice product. They call it a clear stain. Stain can't be clear. I don't know why they call it that, but anyway, that's what they call it. It really does a nice job. It beads up the water nicely. It's got great reviews online from other people, so I'm happy with it so far. I say I'll reapply it every year or two to my pieces, and that'll be good. So I, as you can see, I had it flipped up on its side there at first so I could get at the underneath and do the top of the Arbour easily. And now I'm doing the rest of it from the sides and the back. And that is the end of this super quick build video. Thank you very much, and please subscribe. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed this, and thank you very much. How's it?